All right. Greetings. We're now live. Welcome to Dorsey's Resource. We're going live. Welcome everyone. First, as usual, before we get started, I'd like to give a disclaimer. This video is going to be for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only. Please understand everyone's individual circumstance or situation may be different. It's up to every individual competent person to please do his or her own homework and research into the matter being discussed. This information is not to be construed as legal advice. In the event you feel you need to seek a competent professional, it is encouraged that you do so at one's own leisure. Dorsey's Resource Channel is not liable or responsible for any misuse of this information. With that being said, everyone is responsible for their own affairs. All rights are reserved. Please govern yourselves accordingly. Now, the topic of this video is going to be a question and answer session. Dorsey's resource to whatever topic is on your mind. I want to address if you have any questions that from previous videos that you may not have got a response. I will try to do my level best to answer them and give my feedback. So, without further ado, let's jump right in. I see we have several people in the chat section. I want to acknowledge Antoine Sutton says, good to see you, man. Appreciate you. Thank you for joining. Chris says, peace and love, brother. Appreciate you. Antoine Sutton says, real information, real news. Thank you. Appreciate you all joining so far. So once again, this is an open invitation. This is question and answer session. I haven't been able to get around to my main email box for this particular channel. I have been doing some studying with another particular type of information pertaining to redemption information. I was invited to these previous meetings. I did mention that in maybe a couple videos to briefly address that. In case you all are wondering where I was at, I still do research studying in light of many of the things that's taken place recently. This is the first video that I've done since the major incident that happened in the news. I want to say real quick, rest in peace to George Floyd. I didn't really do a video in particular addressing that particular topic. However, whatever's on your mind, whatever you want to ask me, this is open Q&A session, any topic. It's not only I cover redemption information, if it's foreign currencies about the dinar. I generally don't talk about that much anymore. However, I still do my level best to try to answer questions in that regard, by the way. So, and then in the meantime, just to let you all know, for the few who are watching, just feel free anytime to jump right in. I generally have like a list of things that I go over, like documentaries that I think is important to research and delve deep into. That's related to the topics that I address and go over, by the way. And I always start off with, I try to remind everyone there is educational information that is still out there. I want to talk about just off, since this is related to any topic, censorship. I did address this in the past, and that's why you don't see a lot of prominent YouTubers who you used to see have moved to other platforms already. Believe it or not, there are a lot of still good information that you'll find, like real information. I saw someone put in the chat, because obviously the mainstream media is very heavily controlled. I noticed it's like 95% liberal, so they're going to push a one-sided perspective, a one-sided narrative. And generally, if you don't agree with the narrative, it doesn't necessarily matter what political affiliation you are, because we saw people who were not only conservative that were banned from Facebook, Twitter, many platforms, just speaking their mind. If it just did not go along with the main narrative, even sub-media sites such as Zero Hedge and others who are like in the middle and, are more left-leaning. We've even seen censorship and many, that's just one example, but many different regards. So just something to keep in mind. I appreciate those who recognize I try to give good quality information. One of the things I let you guys know in the past, I did a video a while ago addressing this, and I want you guys to know the credibility of the information I go over. I do research. I do have sources. I just don't always mention who they are, but just offhand to show credibility and how reputable I am. I have friends who were former military, several, by the way, who had secret security clearances. One in particular that I work with, I won't say where, many years ago, who actually helped wake me up. And then I didn't originally know this, but you know, when you get to know people over a period of time, you develop a bond. They open up, you share information, they may share information back with you, and that's how I got and gathered quality information, by the way. So just some tidbits for those out there, you know, when I've had individuals who may not believe, but I always encourage everyone, and that's why I even put my disclaimer to please do your homework and research, and I think you'll be really surprised. And I want to give a big shout out to Currency 365, by the way, for the work that he's doing. He recently, I saw someone sent the video that he shared. It was an older video that I have done some time ago. I like to add to that, expound on it a little bit. It was a video I did a while ago. One of the reasons I was saying the real reason the Iraqi dinar is being held up, in my opinion, I showed some diagrams. I did a lot more screen captures back then, or some in particular, where I showed some members of the ruling class elite, by the way, and some of their involvement in things, because I was part of like a shadow operation some years ago from a private seminar that I attended, by the way. Some of you all know what I'm talking about. I won't necessarily say the name. By the way, I do have documentation as well as others. I was one of the original people in '09, by the way, and kudos to some newbies that I met out there, people been in the movement. I met from this other class that I attended. I had some people who mentioned they recognized me. Big shout out to you all out there in touching bases, by the way. And I was part of that private humanitarian program, and that's also how I gathered more information, more data down the line, because I began to question things, because I felt at the time, I was wondering why we were not funded yet, and I had gone through a process where I had felt like I worked hard. I followed all the rules to receive that black card at that particular type of event during that time period. Now, I've heard from people who decided to return. Last year, I decided I had to make, it was a tough decision at the time, not to come back. I was still kind of in limbo because they were still holding my private documents, my paperwork, which was promised many years ago that we were going to receive that information back. And I wanted to know what happened. And if we didn't hear anything for a number of years, many of us were left in limbo. Now, I do have supporting documentation to validate and back that up. And I have some more action-packed information I've just been kind of holding out on, by the way, because I want to ensure you guys that the information that I do go over is reputable. When I talk about high-level things that seem esoteric, that seem like it's not real, like, you know, dealing with the TDA accounts, you know, the black card, there's actually an application I found and I found some of the information still on the Federal Reserve's website, and they since have revitalized and upgraded their website, by the way. I appreciate you all for the thumbs up out there. Please, if you get a chance, don't forget to smash the thumbs up button. Helps me rank higher in the search results. If you want to continue to see Dorsey's Resource, by the way, you know, with all the censorship going on out there, it helps out tremendously if you don't forget to hit the thumbs. Appreciate you guys out there who continue to support me, the new subscribers who come along, by the way, and those out there who've been following me for a while. Someone I met recently, by the way, I won't say their name, you know, unless I was given permission from them, but big shout out. They said they had been following my channel for a long time, so I was really surprised, by the way, but kudos to you all. Appreciate you. I really do, by the way. So you guys, once again, this is open Q&A. This is the best time to reach me, so don't hesitate. If you have any questions, any comments or concerns, this is the best time to ask me. By the way, I don't always get a chance to respond to the emails. I'm going through a process. I have separate email addresses. I'm really busy, And I'll maybe discuss that later in trying to go to the next level, as I previously discussed prior about maybe starting a Patreon account where I'll go a lot more in depth. And with that Patreon, I'll take it to another level where I will show my personal documents and go over a lot more in-depth information. As Currency 365 has mentioned to me in the past, he would be a supporter. I haven't decided what would be a reasonable, donation for those who wanted, like additional information and also to validate some of the types of things that I go over. If you guys want to see me start a Patreon account, by the way, it would help out, tremendously with even what I'm doing, in the meantime, the research that I do, because I'm still on the 9-to-5 job, as I call it, the slavery plantation. Someone asked me in the past, what do I do? Because they heard the radio in the background. I work in security. By the way, I patrol businesses at night, do mobile patrol, by the way. So for you all who are curious, I had to go through a background check. I'm not a police officer, by the way. It's a big difference. There are some similarities. It depends on what type of security field you work in. There's many different types of security, just like law enforcement. You have detectives, people who are not even out in the field, by the way. All they do is do research, by the way. And that's another thing I've worked with. Not only had friends in the past to show credibility that's given me information that many members in the general public are not necessarily privy to, but I had some people that I work with who, even once I got to know them, even taught me about how information and things in government works. By the way, how they have different levels, of how people who even just have general offices for the government, by the way, some of them get security clearance as well in Washington, D.C., by the way. And someone I met who I coached, that a lady I met some years back, not too long ago, too long ago, where she worked in the D.C. area, and she asked some questions about the dinar, by the way, and I was able to help out with that. So without further ado, I'm going to jump into the chat section. It looks like, okay, we have some more people in here. Great. We have, let me see some of the comments. Let me scroll up. Okay, I didn't see some of the first. Cindy Loach in here. Chris, peace to you, Chris. Thank you for joining. Chris Ledford says car insurance sends a statement with a coupon now in the Black's Law 5th. A coupon is a contract and a bond. I did see a message, Chris. Yeah, I've been trying to learn about that. I have someone in a small group that I heard some years ago about that negative symbol. I looked at it as like another form of an A for V process. Some processes I've heard you have to send that along with the 1099 A. I'm not sure in particular. Some of those processes I've tried, older processes, but many processes are different. Chris Lever says, does that sound like they give folks a liability with a coupon to use or not? And if we do use it, doesn't that discharge the original charge? It's supposed to, I would say. However, that's something that that's been kept hidden from us. I do know that private seminar I attended some years ago, the individual who was like the head overseer of that event did go over that information. By the way, someone even reminded me recently in my private group. They stated, when I first learned about the A for V, I didn't know about anything sending that along with the 1099, but I've heard from some processes, people do that, or some people mention the form of a tax assessment. But in the past, I utilized it by itself, and I even assisted someone at the time. And they told me they weren't for sure if they had gotten guaranteed results, but they said it seemed like during that time period that things had changed or appeared to help out, but I wasn't really for sure. Now, there was a separate procedure that I helped a friend with the negotiable instrument. It was a bond. It was like old technology, I call it, where it was sent to the Secretary of Treasury in Washington, D.C. And there is information used to be online where a former investigative journalist confirmed he met with the former Secretary of Treasury, I believe by the name of Paul H. O'Neill or something around that name. And the former Secretary of Treasury admitted at that time period, that they received negotiable instruments and did honor them, by the way. But it was something that was not publicized. It was kept like private. So I'm not sure if they still do that to this day. I haven't utilized that process in a very long time. I am in the process of, hopefully in the near future, trying to execute something related to that. So answering your question, I want to say I'm not for sure, but nothing beats a failure but a try. I say don't give up. But if anyone has any information out there or has mastered the ability with success and would like to share that information, don't hesitate. You can shoot me an email at the letter J, 279 Dorsey@gmail.com. The letter J, 279 Dorsey@gmail.com. If anyone out there has had success utilizing A4V and doesn't mind sharing that without having to charge or anything, it would be greatly appreciated. Or any insight, but serious inquiries only, by the way, just putting that out there. Power for All says, good morning, Mr. D. Good to hear from you. Thank you for joining. Appreciate you. Fox Chick 2017 says, greetings to you, Fox. Thank you for joining, by the way. Chris says, they sent a coupon as a liability for us to resend as a asset for set-off. Just curious. Yes, I first heard that information 2 years ago, by the way, from Winston Shrout. That information, I believe it is definitely credible. I was told it's also important to read Article 9 of the Uniform Commercial Code. The coupons from the bills are also forms of vouchers. There is some history behind the A4V process, or acceptance for values. Contrary to popular belief that some people say that it doesn't work, I've heard that in the past. And I want to say I haven't utilized that process in many years. I've had some people some years ago did ask me, but I've also heard about newer processes very similar. So once again, I'm asking, just putting it out there, because that's how we all, those of us who are aware, or those who might be more advanced, willing to share information, can help others out if they do know of a procedure that's work that's guaranteed. But from what I've heard, you see, the problem is a lot of the banks, the lower level banks such as Huntington, Chase Bank, Fifth Third, this is before the pandemic, before this whole COVID thing, by the way, SunTrust, Wells Fargo, credit unions, by the way, Michigan First Credit Union, First Federal Credit Union, just a whole list of Wells Fargo, all of these sub banks that are up under the Federal Reserve. The problem is that they've been complicit in the cover up, and it's not always their fault, the lower level banks at the bottom, because people who work at these institutions have not been trained on information pertaining to the private sector, because the ruling class elite at the very top, we have to keep in mind, they've kept many of this information very secretive. There's information that is hidden from the general public. Yes, contrary to popular belief, this is true. I would say check out Pastor Lindsey Williams. He had a DVD called Secrets of the Elite. I don't know if it's still on YouTube. You still might be able to watch it on there for free. If it still is, you have to do a search. And it's called Secrets of the Elite. He kind of provides insight into the elites, how many were sent to private schools by invitation only. Many were taught by their parents. So there's people out here who are given information. So it's like they have the cheat sheet, by the way. And I don't know how that structure works in some degrees, where some people might, I've heard stories, they might have had an elite that's a neighbor, by the way. It's a small world sometimes. People who have like a high net worth are able to live in a community, because some of these elites, the ones in the ruling class who don't necessarily know how to appear as though they're rich, but are wealthy and know how to hide it, but appear to blend in with regular citizens in upscale communities, by the way. I've heard stories, and I won't say one in particular, and I know I wouldn't doubt if this was pretty common. It's more rare that someone would be in a position like this, but I've heard a story of a particular neighbor. I don't know where the guy got to know the guy. the individual, the story that was told at this event that I attended some years ago. I won't go into the details, but he was given information and was held by his hand and showed how basically the paperwork, and he was basically freed from the system because he had someone on the inside. And that's why I said some years ago when I heard this thing brought up about these humanitarian projects, and I kind of felt that this was being manipulated in a way, because I felt if these people, really want to do a humanitarian cause, they should have helped the people out at the event first and got them funded. Not saying that I'm not a money hungry person, but I heard people kind of put the cart before the horse up front. We're talking about if they got access to this large sum of wealth, they were going to buy big mansions and expensive cars and things of that sort. I don't mind having nice things, but I was looking at I just want to learn how to do the paperwork so I can free myself, so I won't have to depend on this 9-to-5 job anymore, because it's a form of involuntary servitude. If I told you guys what I was going through, the things I mentioned, some things in the past about how, they were just scheduling me 6 days a week. Even last year, I had to tell one of the supervisors, they asked me, could I work 7 days a week? Literally, I had done this in the past, but during that time, in 2016, there was a time period where I actually worked 55 days straight, and I actually tracked it. And there was a separate stint where I tracked 37 days straight. But the one time I did track where I worked 55 days straight, I did track that time period back in 2016. And I was working a lot of overtime during that period. It was a transitional period before a new operations manager had came in and had taken over, as one guy was leaving the security company that I work for. But, you get burnt out after a while, and I'm older. So I felt when I attended this event some years ago that these people were mentioning, about doing these humanitarian projects and things. And I felt that for them to cut us off the way that they did, and then they didn't give us access, I felt that was more detrimental to the cause overall. And I felt there was a way to do it. They could have, at least if they were going to cut the black cars off, they should have given us access to the authorization forms they should have completed on behalf of us with the Federal Reserve, the operating circulars, the application that deals with the black card. And I felt that would have helped out tremendously. So we would have had direct access to our TDA account, what some people refer to as private or secret account, by the way, which is blocked when a regular citizen or someone tries to access that. By the way, that doesn't have the right credentials, because this individual was always teasing us or saying you don't have a signature card on file. Well, why didn't you do a signature card? By the way, and you knew many of us were struggling and trying to make these seminars and make these events, but you still, it was like nothing to you. And then you said it was the people at the DTC that chose to cut us off. I still hold some accountability there. I don't just put all the blame on whoever these people were behind the scenes that were running things at the DTC, because I feel like, once again, their families are eating good at night. Their children are well taken care of. If you were going to recruit us and say that you needed at least 5,000 people into the Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation, because you did have a quota and said that we were needed, why did you recruit us? By the way, only, to just dangle the carrot or put the candy in front of the baby and just snatch it away. Very cruel, very mean-spirited, very evil, by the way. I'm just saying. So I don't think there was nothing humanitarian about that. They need to fix that part, what was done, that needed to be corrected, by the way. And I think you wouldn't have as many angry people or people that would be upset. Not just myself, but lots of others, by the way. For what I was told, I did meet someone who attended a more recent event, and I heard people going through the same thing that I went through back in 2009. Just ridiculous, by the way. Utterly crazy, and I kind of saw that coming. Mary Sanders in the chat, greetings to you, says, hello, Mr. Dorsey. Thank you for joining, Mary. Appreciate you. Antoine Sutton says, TDA accounts are real. Yes, sir, I agree. Contrary to popular belief, and there's this gatekeeper that's still out there that's been putting information trying to say that they're not and trying to attack people. And I actually found I had the application to the Federal Reserve that we were given at the time. How would I even know about that if I wasn't even taught? I just found it recently in some of my notes, a physical app. I may, do a video. I was thinking about tomorrow, by the way, which actually that's today because we're already past midnight, by the way. Yeah. So tonight is Sunday. We're already June 14th. So maybe later today or maybe Monday, I was thinking about, coming to you guys again. Because I said I like to come to you guys earlier during the day. Sometimes I'm tired because of this type of schedule that I have. I've been doing this for a number of years, and it's starting to wears the body down tremendously, especially if you don't eat right. So yes, I do have direct confirmation. And some people, I don't want to get caught up. They get caught up in the names like Treasury Direct Account. And the Treasury, there is a connection that where they were connected to the Federal Reserve, there is a connection that even still exists, even amongst the new system they're supposed to be moving over to. By the way, this new ledger system, there's still a connection. By the way, even many other government entities, and some people fight over whether they call it a TDA, secret account, private account. Private and secret, if you look up the definition of private and secret, they mean practically the same thing. So I want to let you guys know, I try to stay away from that and not get caught up in the semantics game, people going back and forth. But it is a real private account. They're blocking people. And I felt those of us who are already awake that were trying to access these accounts and receive reversals, I felt that my message to the powers that be, or whoever is blocking these accounts, they should release these accounts to us, and we should have gotten access, because those of us, I feel, who are awake to the truth, who were aware of these accounts, especially those of us who attended that event some years ago, by the way, not saying the name, we should have been given access to those accounts, by the way, which are actually our accounts. By the way, I don't understand why we're being blocked. By the way, I kind of do, but then again, I don't, at the same time, because I feel like you have enough slaves within the system already. You have enough people who want to be brainwashed. By the way, this is my argument, my personal argument. You have enough people that want to be brainwashed, that want to stay slaves. Let them stay asleep. If they want to stay sheeps in the system, let them stay brainwashed and programmed. But you should have let us access our accounts, those of us who are awake. And I'm demanding, we should even file, when I was part of that movement some years ago that broke out with Mike O'Brien, Triple Moore, Extra Light, Harvey Dent, we should have bonded together and filed a class action lawsuit or done something. I think that would have sent a message, more so. We should have been more aggressive, but I understand, during that time period, some people didn't have only so much information, or only understood so much. And that's why I had a lot of people come to my channel at the time when I still had that video up, before I decided to take it down out of respect to the individual at that event that I attended. And kudos to Yusuf L at the time for sharing that video. That's why it went viral. Before I took it down, it was approaching about 90,000 views. It was around 88,000. And that was just from that one video. There was other videos. There was another one that I had that had approached around approximately 20,000 views, by the way. So I wanted to confirm Antoine's statement. Yes, those accounts are real, contrary to popular belief. And I have supporting documentation to back it up. So if law enforcement was ever able to contact me, or if I was to get in some trouble, I would have the solidified evidence. And a lot of other people out there as well have access to that did attend that event, by the way. They just may not have decided to go public like myself, by the way. But those accounts are real, by the way. Chris says, wouldn't a coupon be better than a Federal Reserve note since it is a bond? Yes, pertaining to the bill, once again, I'm going to kind of move on from that topic. Yes, by the way. And then another thing, too, I want to say, you guys, some of you are more advanced than other people in here that are joining. From my experience in the movement, a lot of newbies, a lot of people don't understand this. Some people who even follow my channel. Some people may even actually be elites. They may have actually already crossed over to the other side. If you have, I would ask that you please help people out. If you have, I've even extended an offer myself, where I mentioned the things I was looking for. If they were willing, please extend an open hand. If you are advanced and you have information, I do understand too, for security purposes, sometimes it can be difficult to try to share information, because we have had people who will try to sabotage your success, like these gatekeepers out here and minions and underlinks who have tried to discourage content creators from teaching or sharing this type of redemption education in an attempt to brainwash people and steer them away from researching the laws or learning the real truth about the legal system. So I ask any good elites out there, if you have a heart, you have compassion, please, if you can take if it's one at a time, but don't come and if you can, not saying this is the case, but I think I've suspected from previous videos, come to channels, make fun of people because they haven't gotten to this level that you're at. And it's like you're looking down on them or whatever. There's people who can, I do believe, have the means and ability and financial means to help people. Like, I don't understand how George Soros is worth $4 trillion and is allowed to fund all of these different movements. And this is another argument I told Pastor Tony King directly last year when I was contemplating on coming back to that event. This is a form of, I think is bigger than voter suppression, is financial suppression. This is financial terrorism with these elites, what they're doing, this criminal cabal, by, not allowing these things to come about, by the way. And I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, this is real, because I've already gone over information in the past, by the way, to gain access. He told us, by the way, and he's an elite, at least from my interpretation. There was nobody, the information, I have the documentation, things he mentioned on the audios, as well as others out there, David Clarence, who confirmed. I encourage you guys, look up the David Clarence audios. If you can still find David Clarence's audios online, you want to look up his audios and listen to them. Not just the stuff about the executor letter, but listen to the other things he was talking about, if you can still find those out there. Now, I don't know, because of all the censorship, this is why Google and YouTube are acting as gatekeepers, attempting to sabotage people's success, because they don't want people waking up. They want to keep people brainwashed and dumbed down, and this is just, it's not fair. It's not right. It's inappropriate, and something needs to be done about this. We have too many agents, too many shields out here suppressing information. We need good elites. We need good people, not people oppressing other people that have access to this information. Help people out. Mary Saunders says, is there really a way to get into out the TDA accounts? Yes, I kind of touched on it earlier. Let me see, from the time that you were in. Okay, that was about a little over 20 minutes ago. Yes, to answer that question, that was the dealing with that application. Now, there are other ways I hear. I don't know too much about the minor accounts. I was listening to, I heard some people, even someone had posted about that, had come to one of the previous videos that I have done. If anybody has information, again, that knows how to access those accounts to discharge bills, it would be greatly appreciated and greatly helpful, by the way. But by holding back the information, there's a saying, if you're not the solution to the problem, then you're part of the problem. Be the solution to the problem and help out, is what I'm encouraging. Antoine Sutton says, yes, sir. Maritz06 says, what's up, Dorsey? Greetings to you. Thank you for joining. Chris says, why A for V when they give a coupon? Isn't it already a bonded negotiable instrument backed up the company security, by the way? Yes, it is a form of a negotiable instrument, just like trade acceptance, the similar, by the way, I've heard about. But once again, not, I kind of delve into the A for V quite a bit. I'm gonna try to answer some of the other questions in the chat. I can come back to that later. Powerful All says, Dorsey, in your opinion, do you feel the 4 million debt cards being sent out to the public are tied to the TDA accounts? Oh yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt. You know, you're paying yourself. Like, even for this job that I'm still on at the slavery plantation, I call it security. What's the main thing, the main number, by the way, that they utilize when you get hired or you work for a company? By the way, what's the main number? In Canada, it's called the social insurance number. Oh, so you guys get it. That was a hint. You know, the social security number. What is the main QSIP number that is attached to the BC, or also known as bond certificate, or also known as birth certificate, or also known as a registered security? As some would argue that it's not, it is a form of a securities instrument. This is a fact, by the way. It is a securities instrument, yes. And there are ways that when I was attending that event, but even prior to that, I have a friend I met some years ago who I helped wake up to this information. And he told me, after he shared some more of his background at the time, he was a former stockbroker, by the way. So I would say, to answer that question, Powerful, yes, but the thing is, they're just giving you a portion of what's out of your exemption, because that entity that it's running through is tied into one of your TDA accounts, that particular department of Treasury. Remember, there's multiple departments of the Treasury. Think about it, it's called department, by the way. What is a department? If you look up the definition, it's it means part of or division of something, or subsidiary. So there's other departments, and then these different governmental bodies, agencies are connected. And to connect it on a collegiate level, this could be taught in economics class, small business management. This could be discussed I took international business. My major in college was management, self-directed management. I took international business. I took business ethics. I also took business at DeVry class. I took small business management. I took marketing. Marketing deals with demographics, you know, percentages, sales, things of that sort, which can tie in to the GDP, gross domestic product of the economy, which is part of the economics, by the way. What is the national debt? You know, things of that sort. These are important to know. By the way, these things tie in. They have a relevance. So yeah, the answer, hopefully I answered the question for you, Powerful All. Yes, they are tied in, those stimulus checks, by the way. Antoine Sutton says, do you believe there are ways to get those TDA accounts running? Absolutely. No doubt. Like I said, I've heard there's different types of TDAs, by the way. Like one in particular was that someone, like I said, to reiterate, mentioned information about the minor accounts. They said it's in the Code of Federal Regulations. I don't remember offhand. However, maybe one of my previous videos, they posted in the comment section. So if you guys scroll back, I don't know which video it was, if it's still there, by the way. It may be in the comment section. And they looked up to look up the minor account. Here, that was one particular way where you set up with Treasury Direct. There's another way through the Federal Reserve. Now, I don't know if even if that method through the Federal Reserve is still how that process is still working, because the only individual at the time that was teaching that, he knew how to access it, by the way, because he was in lead. That's how I found out about it. I actually just came across the application not too long ago. But the thing is, with this type of information, by the way, I would need a team of people. And what happens is, when I gave people information, some people I was working with some years ago with how to do the tax assessment with the IRS, you know, part of the deal was they were supposed to help me in return, you know, with the paperwork. You know, kind of like, I feel like if you scratch my back, I scratch your back. You know, that's how we help one, teach one, take one, teach one. You know, we help each other out. But the problem is, once people, in many cases, get a hold of the good information, they take it and run with it and they disappear, because it's like a selfish mentality of people don't see the importance of actually studying and in a group, like having meetings, unofficial meetings. By the way, now I do commend recently the group that I'm working with, well, privately I was invited to. I would say that they're trying, at least they're trying to do something to solve that. They're working together. But I always stress, and I gave advice to people in the past, find someone in your state first before you if you're looking at trying to contact someone or going out of state. Because I've heard stories from people about people charging or asking donations. I think that's a whole separate video about as well, for people who do decide to take donations and things. People that are sincere, I can understand that. But you do have people out here who are just trying to make a quick buck, who are maybe not as honest or don't have integrity. That's why I say always evaluate if you decide to give money to someone or study up under someone as well. Look at the level that they're at. I've always admitted to you guys, I'm at a certain level in this. I feel like I'm at an advanced level. I'm definitely not a beginner. I'm at a more advanced level. However, I would need someone either at my level or more advanced than myself. But sometimes when I meet newbies, I have to dumb myself down to like their level, try to explain things so they can understand. And that takes time for me getting, up here. And you can imagine through the years, I've been burnt out, by the way. Not saying I like to help people when I can, but it's only so many that one person can also do. That's why I said the Patreon account would enable me to kind of go more in depth and kind of build a blueprint. And then it will help me at the same time be able to monetize my intellectual property that I'm going over as a courtesy from the time that's taken aside, by the way. Because I understand time equals money, by the way. What a friend of mine said to me many years ago. I got to take a whiff, guys. When you get to talking, but I'm going to get back to the chat in a second. Okay. So it says, do you believe there are ways to get those TDA accounts running? So absolutely. Yes. Don't give up. And I would say there's other ways to access them, which was discussed when I was invited to those private meetings a few years ago, back in 2017, when I talked about those 1099 forms, and I was one of the first to mention them in relation to that. I wasn't the first, like in the movement, but just in terms of like other ways to access them. You can kind of look at it like that, because we have evidence from years ago, information that was removed online. If you go on Scribs, I heard a friend of mine told me it's owned by the Discovery Channel, but if you go on Scribs, I heard they a lot of those documents that used to be free are now on their site, by the way. Unfortunately, you have to, I think, get a membership, or you have to upload so many documents in order to get like a free document, by the way, which is interesting. Chris says, laugh out loud, just testing the waters, brother. Learn before doing anything. Yes, I understand. Antoine says, Pastor who? Pastor Lindsey Williams. Lindsey Williams. I'm just referencing, I'm not trying to get religious, but he's someone to kind of give you guys a story. Many of you already know who he is, by the way. And there was another YouTuber that has a bigger following, bigger channel than myself, who I won't mention, by the way, who shared his that information about Pastor Lindsey quite a bit. And there are others, by the way. He gave his testimony some years ago. He lived with the elites of the world, the ruling class, by the way. And he gave his testimony, his story at the Alaskan pipeline, by the way. It looks like got a super chat in here. I'm going to try to see if they posted a message. Appreciate the super chat. Not sure yet who sent it. May have to scroll down. Super chat from Steve Mayfield. Thank you. Appreciate you, Steve. Appreciate you. Okay. sometimes I see they can leave a message in the super chat. Appreciate you. Thank you for the super chat, by the way. So scroll back up to get to the rest of the questions. Chris says, everyone give a thumbs up. Help support our brother Dorsey. Appreciate you, Chris. Thank you. Antoine says, true. Sean Diamond says, D, what up, bro? Appreciate you, Sean. Thank you for joining. Dominique Sim says, what is your opinion on why the banks are not selling the Vietnamese dong anymore? I checked Chase and Wells Fargo, and neither can see VND on their screens. I would think, in my opinion, that's probably a good indication that something good may be around the corner, getting ready to happen. You never know. Yeah, very good question, by the way. But I think, you know, maybe in relation to that, because if you remember some of the previous videos I discussed, even though I don't really talk about the reset that much anymore, I think the people who are in charge or behind, they want things to kind of go discreetly. And if there really is, I don't know, like, if about this thing about 800 numbers, for sure. I'm just like you, the rest of you guys. You know, I'm still learning as I go. I do have some sources with some particular type of information, I would say at a certain level. Not like some gurus or people that have bigger followings than my channel. But I will say that I know of a source that did tell me about the back screens, by the way, that I do have direct confirmation that exists. But I think they want things to happen discreetly. And when it comes to these 800 numbers I heard too, I would say you want to be polite at your appointments, because I heard they took a test group of people who traded in a particular type of currency. I won't say the name. And I heard that some of the people at these exchanges were acting belligerent. And by the way, and I heard you want to be a peaceful inhabitant. There may be security there, so you want to be on your best behavior, which when I go to the bank, I'm always polite, courteous, very respectful, by the way, just me personally. So just a heads up, if you guys are involved in the process, if this does happen, God willing, you want to be polite and be discreet the way you handle things too, by the way. But just keep that in mind. That's why I'm giving my disclaimer. Govern yourselves accordingly, by the way. Chris says, sounds like since property is put into a charitable trust, people have an exemption to be given, kind of like he who holds the gold government pays. Sounds like property is put. Yes, I've heard your name, you know, it holds many different types of positions. By the way, the legal person, legal fiction, by the way. We know it's an organization. Organization comprises different types of entities, by the way. It's an estate. It's a sole proprietorship, by the way. It's a partnership between you, the living man, and the corporate fiction, legal person, in lingus, by the way. It's a 508 corporation sole. It's a trust. Yes, by the way. Sounds like make a trust and place all property in that with a solid indenture agreement. Yes. That's excellent. You want to, yeah, for your indenture agreement, that will go along with your trust. That's important. That's similar, like if you're starting a corporation, it would be like your forms of your articles of incorporation. Or even if you're starting an LLC even. You know, you're explaining what the entity, what it's going to do, the bylaws behind how it's going to contract, the contractual obligation, contractual agreements. Antoine says, I saw a video that was removed. I showed exactly how to release it. Y'all were on it then, you, Harvey Dent, and about 5 others. Okay, cool. If you do, you know how to access, you can hit me up at j279dorsey@gmail.com. I like to research that information if you do have access. I do understand why some people that are more advanced don't share information sometimes too, because there's people out there, once again, I've heard stories of powers that be have tried to sabotage procedures and processes. And that's why some people that are highly advanced don't share things. But at the same time, I don't want to discourage you from giving up. But if those who are advanced, who are willing to extend a hand or mention certain key things to do that will help assist one in terms of discharging debt, because I think that's one of the main weapons they've been using against us is the monetary system. By the way, I don't hear discharge in the movement. I think needs to be talked about more. It needs to be dealt. We need to master that the ability to discharge, to sell off these bills, because these corporations are making they're double dipping. They're getting paid like 2 and 3 times where they're selling an instrument on the securities market because they're a corporation. So they're making 2 and 3 times the profit. And they're I heard you even have a refund account dealing with your exemption, and they're hiding it. They're basically they're not giving you the credit because that voucher, the bill you receive, has the coupon part on there, and you're supposed to claim that back. You're supposed to get it back. They shouldn't be making this difficult, by the way. It should not be hard. You know, it's a form of stealing from people covertly, covert form of stealing, and financial suppression. You know how they talk about, the Democrats talk about voter suppression? This is financial suppression. This would be one of the biggest topics, I think, in the redemption movement, financial suppression. By the way, those of us who are awake to this information, I'm not saying this is no excuse to create anarchy, disruption. I'm mentioning something that's been a grievance for a number of years. This is financial terrorism, what these people are doing to us. This is mean spirit. And they're using these corporations to bully us, by the way, and then there's people that say there is individuals who are advanced who will use as an excuse, well, I won't teach that information because people mess things up. We do know that's true, but there is a way that I know there's gotta be a way. I shouldn't say gotta be. I know there's a way. That particular process, there's different processes to access the TDA. One of them is that that minor account thing. I don't fully know how to set that up. So I'm asking again, if anybody knows how to set that up properly, please share that information. There's another way I know with the application, which may still be on the Federal Reserve's website. Now, the whole application might not be on there. And Yusuf El actually did a video a while ago on that application about that, how to access that, by the way. So just keep that in mind. I actually came across part of it, by the way, the signature card. It access, though. Some people call it the consent form. And you want to study the operating circulars. They're like the rules, the regulations, the laws, basically, on the Federal Reserve's website. You have to look for it. If you go to frbservices.org, frbservices.org is the website. And you need a team of people, highly intelligent people. It could be accomplished. People studying, you have to brainstorm. You know, like you break off into groups, because I've seen even some of the most intelligent people out there, it's difficult for many to do this by themselves. Sean says, so the redemption process doesn't work anymore because of the new system. Question marks. I would say maybe some processes. I saw the evidence where some people who are advanced, several individuals have shown people getting checks and videos back from the IRS or the Treasury for certain procedures that were done. In many instances, they may not have elaborated. Now, one particular individual, some years ago, I saw a video he posted where he did a process, by the way, and show how he got a check back for his bill, by the way, which I had heard that that was possible some years ago. I first heard from Winston Shrout, but I don't think Winston Shrout was advanced, but he may not have known how to do the proper tax assessment, by the way, with that, in regards to that. Dark Side Music 13 says, good morning, sir. Greetings to you. Thank you for joining. Sean Diamond says, wait, recap what's going on. Chris says, sounds like when one gets a charge, it's already prepaid like a car loan. It's a promissory note, no money. Thus, how could anyone pay? Just debt notes, which include loans. Yes, absolutely. those prepaid instruments. Antoine says straw man birth certificate would be like the golden ticket. Power for All says the TDA is real. I was able to have $59,000 taken off my mortgage at the same time Heather and Tucci frame until they caught on to millions of us that were accessing. Then reversal started to happen. Yeah, you know what's interesting about that, Power for All, I concur, is I noticed around that time period that PayPal during that period have removed being able to access the Federal Reserve banks. And I saw a procedure, a guy that went over, he had a YouTube channel, was completely shut down. Mighty funny, once again, when people are teaching real information, the channels get shut down or removed. His channel was removed entirely. He had 2 channels, but the one channel he had was going over the process, and fortunately I was able to get several of the videos, by the way, and that's all I'll leave it at, because I think some of the information is sensitive. I've come across some new information recently, and I'm still looking back at that. And also Amazon. I talked to people who said they received things from Amazon. Why all of a sudden would they just remove the Federal Reserve, the access to that account, and then Amazon would stop with the deliveries that were being made, people who were accessing it, by the way, and even people who signed up like with Telecheck to confirm their accounts. You know, you just scratch your head and you just wonder. I don't find that to be a coincidence. And this is a fact. This actually happened. So this was a cover-up, by the way. It seems like cabal, evil people are doing, as mean spirit, whoever is in charge of this. So wicked. This is evil, diabolical, in my opinion. You know, and this is a fact. This is what happened. This is not hearsay. I know that took place because I saw it. I have videos, a video to prove it, by the way. I actually sent that to someone maybe a year or 2 ago. One of my subscribers, a guy named Duncan down in the Alabama area, sent it to him, by the way. He's a broker, by the way. So I showed, you know, the evidence. It's you know, bad, you know. Karen Cross says, damn, YouTube cheated me again from knowing you're online. Please, do you have another site, bro? Pray and care about you and miss you. I'm not sure what happened, Karen. You also have to make sure too, just in case, make sure if you are subscribed to me, you hit the notification bell, or you won't receive the latest updates of when I'm going live. You might be subscribed, but you have to hit the notification bell so YouTube will notify you, and make sure you check if you're live on YouTube through your phone, check your inbox messages, and it shows you who's going live at the time. But what I'm working on is an alternate YouTube channel. I do have another one as a backup, by the way, where I'm going to use my real name, because I'm in the process where I'm going to trademark my government name, and then part of it, you have to prove that it's being used in commerce, by the way, for the service marketing procedure that you go through. Many states, they want you to show evidence, by the way, that your name is being used. So this channel, part of my, you know, my real government last name is used. I also do have an indigenous name, by the way, and I have evidence. I don't really touch on it as much, documentation that deals with the Moors. I'm not officially a part of the Moorish Science Temple or Moorish Mexican Moors or Moorish Republic. However, remember, Moor was used just like the word term black to describe a nationality or depiction of brown melanated people too, by the way. Moroccan, and there was actual congressional session that is at the Library of Congress that you can get a certified copy that is documented and also in a particular state. And I have that documentation, by the way. And there's also a site that was is no longer up from some years ago that went over information about descendants, Africans in this country, descendants of slaves and people of melanated descent who by default were not supposed to be included as 14th Amendment citizens, so can claim another nationality by default. And then you can look up the Dred Scott case in the Black's Law Legal Dictionary, 6th edition. Look up the Dred Scott case, by the way. So, but to answer your question, Karen, I will have to work on getting a website, but also my Patreon I was thinking about is in the works as well, and that would help facilitate those things. And then with Patreon, there's different levels where for a higher amount of donations, I could go more in depth. So for sharing my intellectual property, my private documents, processes I've done, I'll go into more details. It will also help keep down on the gatekeepers, the minions and trolls, because they would have to pay to receive the information. I would be able to go a lot more in depth. Believe it or not, you guys think I'm giving a lot of information now. I would really be able to go because I have nothing to hide. I'm showing my real face. Notice that many of these agents, gatekeepers out here, they don't show their real face. You have to question that. When somebody is telling you and claiming this person is a sovereign citizen, they're always pointing the finger, but they're never showing a real face. They're never showing a real name. Ask the question, how credible are they? What makes them reputable? I've even done screen capture videos where I show on my computer the documents I have or PDF files. This shows credibility, so, you guys can read in between the line. But if I do start a Patreon, I will, start taking things to the next level. And it won't be I may have different tiers. Like I'm thinking about just the 2-tier so far, like maybe a basic tier for like stuff documents, but then the higher tier is where I'll be able to go a lot more in depth, show a lot more details, and I have the skill set because of my experience. I'm like a coach, by the way, where I can see processes more advanced than what I've even gotten around to. Because keep in mind, this job I've currently been doing 6 days a week. Even in the past, I've done 7 days at one time. So when it comes to filing paperwork and stuff, on my off days, sometimes all I want to do is just enjoy my time off, by the way. It's rough. And then I kind of became not as organized. But I have my own apartment, my own place, which throughout the years takes time managing, even being a bachelor, because I had things and, I can go more in depth later. But I have, my challenges, by the way, that I have to face, domestic duties on top of studying this type of information. By the way, it's not easy. And then I study multiple processes, and I know about different processes because of my years of experience in the movement, because like things, how to protect yourself, dealing with how you travel, of that sort. I know some things in that regard. There's a webinar I have, things of that sort. This gets in a private consultation. It's something separate. Some people ask donations or charge for that. I have information. I even have a source, someone that I know privately, who's having success in that regard, where their automobile is in another entity. I won't say what type, but it helps out. There's some things that I know. I could talk about other stuff, but I need something. I wouldn't mind even teaching this information for free some years ago if those other things had came through. But because I'm still on this slave plantation, by the way, it's not as easy, as it seems. And I've been doing this for a number of years, by the way. And I'm getting older. I feel like I paid my dues, by the way. I've helped out people in the past. I could tell numerous stories about, you guys can even read the comments from not just my YouTube channel, my Facebook page. I had people come there, thank me for the information I do share, by the way. But in order to get to the next level, I have to find, another means of income. And because YouTube has colluded, they're with the cabal, the New World Order, the deep state. They don't want, to see people like myself or others to be at another level where I will be able to help more people, because they want to control the narrative. Mind you, this is a form of discriminatory practices, and they claim to be liberal, to be tolerant. Liberal is supposed to be tolerant, but they're not tolerant at all. This is part of political science. You see, so they're the ones that's evil. Mostly the Democrats. Liberal. YouTube is now, they appointed a CEO and she's a feminist, by the way. Feminists hate men, by the way. Secretly, covertly. Like they're using this incident with George Floyd. By the way, you have all these groups that come in and they're pushing their own ideologies. by the way, like that famous actor, I won't say the name, that guy who's trying to say people within the black community treat him that way for being gay or whatever, to try to distract or take away, you know, from what does go on. And I agree, you know, that there's things that do go on that there needs to be addressed with the unfortunately with the law enforcement. However, if you these incidences that are going on are definitely being used by the ruling class, the deep state. They're funding anarchist groups. You know, different names like George Soros has been out there. Even in the past, I saw Lisa Haven. She did a video where she showed the tax documents of Hillary Clinton. I think David Brock from Media Matters. It was on Scribs, by the way, that same site where people get documents. I saw a report on it. So this is not something I'm making up. She did a video, which I like, just like Alex Jones. She shows the evidence behind what she's discussing, by the way. And she showed these different groups, how they were being funded and how Hillary had funded that riot, that incident that got shut down when Trump was still running for president during 2016 in Chicago. I saw when she reported on it, that Chicago rally, when the Chicago PD had to shut down that Trump rally because they said they had paid people, protesters on buses. They were bussed in, similar to like these protests that had happened recently. And she said during that period, many of them were drunk or high. They were highly intoxicated, and they were bussed in. And she showed where the documents where it was funded through, by the way, the documentation. So they're using this also to, I hear, ban the guns. The United Nations is also involved in the funding. There's a bill, I can't think of the name of it, but it's tied in with the UN. And by the way, I mentioned when I was part of that private humanitarian program some years back, I mentioned when I was invited to those private TDA calls a few years ago, I brought that up about how they wanted us to donate to these UN organizations. And I debated a person who attended, and I vividly remember at the time they were trying to make it mandatory before they changed it because they had a vote back then. I was part of the 09 group, and they wanted us, and some people didn't like it back then, and they changed it to say, well, 70% they wanted of your funds that you were going to receive from collapsing your Social Security card. And by the way, they're still holding my private documents wherever they went. Who knows, to say when you get access to the DTC, they wanted 70% of it to be donated to these different groups. And the people, there was backlash because some of the groups that were suggested, they were saying it was a lot of them were UN organizations. One of them was the World Health Organization. So all this stuff was being pre-planned, by the way. So you're not just hearing, like, I'm not just making this stuff up. I was directly involved at an event, by the way. I'm connecting the pieces. So we just had a stoppage, briefly. Break up. Okay, I'm back. Powerful says, Great American Coin Comp still sells all currency. Okay, great. Great American Coin Comp still, okay, that's a good lead for those out there interested. By the way, let me scroll down and see how many comments we got left. A few more before I probably shut things down. So once again, in case you're joining me, guys, you're currently watching Dorsey's Resource. This is question and answer. Whatever's on your mind, feel free to chime in any topic, by the way. So this is the last call for questions before I shut things down, by the way. Don't hesitate for those of you all who are watching. Chris says, I heard Patrick Devine talk about using a letter of credit. Yes, he wasn't the only one. Jonah Bay mentioned that, went over that information some years back, by the way, back in 2014. Jonah was working with Yusaville at one time before I think they had a disagreements or falling out, but I still follow both of them. Excellent researchers, excellent information they brought to the table, just like Gene Keating. A lot of the pioneers of the past, I think, are just as important as the newbies that have come around sharing this type of information. But a letter of credit, yes, it's important to use along with your negotiable instrument. Some of that is older technology too, by the way, but I think it can be helpful. Powerful says PayPal, correct. They changed their process. Okay, thank you for that information, Powerful. Chris says, ever seen the Masonic legislature process book? No, I haven't seen it. I'm not familiar. If you don't mind sharing that, how to access that, feel free. Shoot me an email at j279dorsey at gmail.com. The letter j279dorsey at gmail.com. I wouldn't mind hearing about that information, about the Masonic legislature process book. Karen Cross says, thank you. It's on my YouTube. Is most likely shadow banned. Thank you. Just glad I saw you for a little bit. Be safe out there. Thank you. Appreciate you, Karen. Thank you for your concern. Chris says, what's a sovereign citizen? I've been a sovereign and then citizen, but never sovereign citizen in a law dictionary. Okay, I've addressed that in the past. Once again, not to stay on that too in depth. That's sovereign is sovereign means to be self-governed. By the way, they use it. You can look up that definition by itself. But they say, some people say you can't use the two nouns, and it's not one word. They're two separate words. But it's an umbrella term that's used by many gatekeepers, minions, people in the deep state to attempt to label people to make them seem like they're crazy. They're a part of conspiracy theorists. They're domestic terrorists. When you have a legitimate side, and I want to I talk about the legitimate side. I can't speak for everyone out there. I don't never use that term or refer to myself as that. Some people have different philosophies as far as what they call themselves. Hey, it's up to you. I don't micromanage. This is a judgment-free zone, by the way. So I don't care, I don't get into that semantics, but I will say, yes, they use it as an umbrella term to discredit people, to steer people away from looking into this type of information. And they also to put labels on people, too, for their own nefarious intentions, hidden agendas, by the way. But the State Department, also, I want to say on a side note, has no official recommendation or term as far as that type of citizenship. I've heard they have national, U.S. citizen, resident alien, non-resident alien, classifications like that. To my knowledge, the State Department, Secretary of State, they don't have acknowledgement with that. So that's irrelevant. There's no actual, that's not, it's always, I'll say this, be suspect if you see mainstream media use that terminology. Once again, they're going to try to paint people, make them look like they're conspiracy theorists, they're crazy, they flew over the cuckoo's nest, that they're not credible, they're not sane people. They want to paint this picture. This is part of that narrative because they want to brainwash people. A lot of times they're showing their colors. They're with the New World Order. They're with the globalists, the criminal syndicate, the ruling class elite, the Illuminati. They're with the Illuminati. I'm not afraid to say that word. They're evil, by the way, and they're gatekeepers. They're minions. A lot of times whoever uses that, be very careful. People who use that term are suspects, especially coming from gatekeepers. If they're calling people that or saying sovereign sit, you want to question it, and why are they many times, if they are sincere or supposed to be whistleblowers or exposing information, why are they not showing a real face? What do you have to hide? What are you hiding from? Why are you not giving a real name if you're credible? If you want people to believe you're credible, if you're not an agent, by the way, just something to think about there. For people who attempt to label or say, see, yeah, they're a sovereign citizen, they're crazy, to just question, but don't do any brainstorm. This shows you I'm an astute person. I do my research. I took notes, by the way, throughout the years. That's why I have these discussions. We brainstorm. I continue to learn. I'm not a know-it-all, by the way. You see, so just something to think about there. Sounds like a slush fund, make others pay. Okay, Antoine says people are also still using promissory notes too. Yes, I've heard about that. Fox says, so have you heard of what the rates would be for the reset as far as the currency goes? You know what? I came across some information from a site called Intel Dinar Chronicles. I don't have it bookmarked, but I was looking for a conference call that someone was sharing with me to answer your question, Fox. In regards to that, I've heard that I say one thing just to give you a heads up. You may not be aware, and because to kind of put it out there, I do know you privately, and I know you may be kind of more of a newbie in terms of the currency, the RV or revaluation, dealing with the reset. I've heard in the past from a guru, by the way, or people I don't really refer to, or people I would say more knowledgeable than myself, that I try to stay away from rates and dates because they really want this rollout to be discreet. But I think it's going to be high. By the way, once it does come out, think of it as similar to cryptocurrencies. Think of Bitcoin at one time. Now, you know, Bitcoin is like in the 1,000 range, several thousand, whatever amount it's at. But did you know at one time, Bitcoin was like less than $1? Think about it. We knew way back then what we know now, some of us. You know, I remember when Bitcoin was around 300. A friend of mine, I didn't know how to get in it at the time. I felt it was too difficult. When a friend of mine used to train with me at my martial arts school some years ago, just using this as an example in relation, when it was 300, but the rate went up. But I think you're going to be happy, Fox, to answer your question, what it comes out with. And doing a research behind that investment, I do have a source, someone I know privately that shared with me about someone that knows about the back screens, and I heard someone else mention the back screens. So I would just say we just have to be patient. This even goes for myself. And I think I think a lot of people will be happy, whatever it comes out with. But just be watchful. You know, I think it's going to be good. But I don't have an exact amount. Because remember, rates fluctuate. Like if you follow currencies like the price of silver, gold, they don't stay the same. They generally fluctuate from day to day, from pennies to penny, whether it's $16, $17 per ounce for silver or whatever, even copper or gold, whatever the amounts, they fluctuate. So rates, international rates, I think it's going to be high because you're buying low, you know, the concept, and you plan to sell back high. But the concept similar to cryptocurrencies, you wait for the investment or for the stock to go up, by the way. You know, kind of similar to playing futures. You understand how the futures market works. But I think you're paying attention once things happen, and maybe all the hype things settle down. But I think they want things to happen discreetly, so I don't get into dates. I think it is real in my opinion. But I always tell everyone, you know, we have to just be patient. I heard we're allegedly in the midst of a reset. We could be close, but I saw this delayed so many times. So I've just put it on a back burner. I put it on my shoulder and say, hey, if it happens, I'm like, at this point, I'm like, whatever. It would be nice. Trust me, it would definitely be nice. But I think you're not going to be disappointed. Whatever the rate is going to be, it's going to be pretty high. Whatever you bought in at. Even if it was just a $5,000 note. Whatever it comes out at, I think you're going to be satisfied. Said, it's a fiction like the straw man. Okay, I'm not sure what you're referring to in that statement, Chris, where you're saying it's a fiction like the straw man. Indeed, ask cops where they get their information and why they believe it. Laugh out loud. Okay. Yeah, there's a procedure, by the way, but there's things I like to talk about that, as I kind of briefly mentioned, that will protect one before you even, you know, get pulled over if you're in that predicament, by the way. So I'm getting ready to shut things down, guys. I've been on here for a while. So KP is going to be the last person in. I'm going to answer. Chris Ledford says, thank you, brother. I will send a copy of the Masonic Legislature book for you. Could you mention your email again? Okay, yes. My email is the letter J, as in John, 279 Dorsey, Delta, Oscar, Roberto, Sam, Edward, Yo-Yo, Dorsey at gmail.com. J279 Dorsey at gmail.com. That's my email. That's one of my more personal email addresses. Now, the email address that I mainly had for inquiries is clogged up at the time. Until I get that caught up, in the meantime, you guys can send me emails to J279 Dorsey at gmail.com, and that's for serious inquiries only, and also to address some of the matters on here that some of you all had, by the way. KP says, dealing with the GSA bonds, if I have a UCC1 lien in place in a state and file these bonds with the DTC, will my lien that I have in place be released or just the state's lien? Thanks for education. Now I'm going to have to read that again. That is a good question. I will say a tough question for me. But I will say the answer, it says, I'm going to read it again. Dealing with the GSA bonds, if I have a UCC1 lien in place in a state and I file these bonds with the DTC, will my lien that I have in place be released or just the state's lien? It depends on what type of lien, by the way, because it's like you're kind of being vague with, you know, I've got to see what's the purpose. Let me go over that again. One, file these bonds with the DTC. Okay, now what type of bonds? That's the question I would ask. And what type of lien do you have in place? Like, what are you trying to get released? Or just the state, you're saying, or just the state lien? I would say nothing beats a failure but a try. But I'm not sure what you're trying to accomplish and what type of lien you're trying to perfect. Now, understand the DTC has a private side, an underwriting department that deals with like those type of negotiable instruments. And they, I guess, that event I attended some years ago, I noticed one of the forums had on their California Bank and Trust. So I heard they deal with the private bank. I heard it was another bank in Utah called Zion's Bank or something like that. They have these banks that deal with, you know, that for asset management, that deal with high net worth people or wealth management that can trade these securities and can move, do like asset transfers or swift payments to these type of accounts. So that's why this gets into a higher, more advanced form of education. So to answer your question, and I'm gonna go read your statement again, KP, dealing with the GSA bonds, if I have a UCC lien in place in a state and I file these bonds, okay, the GSA bonds, General Services Administration. And again, I have to ask what type of GSA bonds. It would depend on what you're trying to do. Are you trying to perfect the lien over the straw man, the legal fiction? I'm not sure what you're trying to accomplish. Because of that, I would not be able to answer the question. I can give insight, and I would say nothing beats a failure but a try. I know some people put the DTC on their GSA bonds, by the way, because that's where the security, from what I understand, the birth certificate is being held at in room 666, from what I've heard in the past. And now, because things are moving over electronically, it may be, I think, digitally held. Because I worked in a file room some years ago, and now with many different institutions that keep files, they put things on microfiche, like even the birth certificate. They said the long form copy, some people refer to as the microfiche copy, or they put on microfilm where they store it, where it's not just a physical record. They have, for example, you don't have just a physical copy, they have a digital record. So that may be contingent upon that and the type of lien that you're trying to perfect. I'm not sure, but thank you for the question. So hopefully I answered that to the best of my ability. Maybe you can come back and explain what type of procedure process make more in depth what you're trying to utilize. With that said, I'm going to get ready to shut things down. I want to thank you guys for joining me, for watching Dorsey's Resource. Looks like I see another comment in here. Okay, Ring M says, how would you go about getting surety bond signature? If BC is authenticated, is there an expiration date? How would you go about getting surety bond signature? Okay, that's a good question. I'm going to say that question, I don't know. I may know, but I'm not sure what process that may be M that's pertaining to. It says if BC is authenticated. I know it helps if your BC is authenticated, because that can make you a qualified institutional buyer with having full faith and credit. There's a process for that, and there's different processes. KP says, I will send you an email if that's okay. Thank you for your time and space. Okay. KP, I will do my level best. I can't say it's a guarantee. You shoot me an email about that question you had earlier. Once again, you guys, I'm getting ready to shut things down. By the way, these are some good questions. As I mentioned, I'm not able to answer everything, but however, I do my level best to the degree of knowledge that I have. By the way, and keep in mind that I can see from some of the types of questions you all asked too, there are different procedures in the redemption movement. And as I discussed previously, there are different ways to access the private or say, quote unquote, secret account. Look up the definition of private and secret. They practically mean the same thing. It's hidden, by the way, or TDA. Some people refer to as TDAs. TDA can be just can act as a pseudonym name for Treasury Direct account, but it doesn't have to necessarily mean that specific type of secret or private account. There could be other secret or private accounts you're trying to access, by the way. And understanding how you're operating in commerce and dealing with secure transactions, which is taught in business and law. By the way, look up the chapter. That's the chapter that deals with UCC finances statements in the college class, business and law. Secure transactions. There's another chapter on commercial paper that deals with negotiable instruments, and there's a chapter that deals with trademarks, copyrights, called intellectual property. There's a chapter in many of the business and law books that deals with intellectual property. Will deal with fictitious names, DBAs, trademarks, and copyrights will fall up under that category, by the way. So with that being said, I want to thank you guys for joining Dorsey's Resource. You're welcome. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up button if you haven't already. You're welcome to subscribe. Please share this video. By the way, helps waking other people up, those who are curious and learning this type of unconventional information. I want to appreciate you all for following. I'm your host, John Dorsey. You can follow me at Dorsey's Resource on Facebook. I'm on Twitter at Dorsey's Resource. I'm also obviously on YouTube. I'm also on minds.com at Dorsey's Resource. I'm also on Instagram at Dorsey's Resource _ 2019 on Instagram. By the way, not often at times too much. I kind of show my other side, my personal life, by the way, a little bit of me. But down the road, not sure if there's other platforms I'm going to be on, but I will let you guys know, by the way. And, stay at it, guys. Don't give up. The marathon will continue. And big shout out to Currency 365 and others out there who share my videos. Appreciate you all. Until next time, thank you for joining. Take care.